Hello, everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reid, and this is the spoiler review. Spoilers, everybody, of Spider-Man Brave New Day. I will be discussing this like we sat next to each other at the theater, experiencing it for the first time. If you haven't seen the film, don't want to be spoiled, you can listen to my non-spoiler review that is currently up right now. But if you have seen the film, or you just flat out don't care and want to know everything that happened in Spider-Man Brave New Day, welcome. We're going to dive in to Marvel's latest addition to the MCU, their 38th film in the MCU, and the fourth film in the MCU Spider-Man films that stars Tom Holland. He yet again returns as our favorite friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, as well as Zendaya and Jacob Batalon joining them this go around. For Spider-Man Brave New Day, you have Sadie Sink as Jean Grey. Yes, spoilers, like I said. She is Jean Grey. Also, Frank Castle, portrayed by the great John Bernthal. Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner the Hulk. Also, Florence Pugh is in this film, reprising her role as Yelena, or Black Widow, the new Avenger herself. And this go around, Peter, he is protecting New York City as Spider-Man. I was about to say Superman, but Spider-Man, and he investigates a powerful new threat while his superpowers undergo a surprising and potentially dangerous evolution. If you listen to my non-spoiler review, you know that I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a well put together film. Probably dragged a little bit, that I thought, in that initial viewing, but I went and saw it again. I wanted to see it again before I did the spoiler review, so I can really appreciate everything and really give my honest opinion of it. And I'm here to tell you straight off the bat that it didn't change for me. It changed in the second viewing. I thought that as much as I enjoyed it the first time, and I thought it was one of the best Spider-Man films, that didn't change as far as my view. I think it's even better than I thought. I really believe that this is probably the best Spider-Man film ever, not just in the MCU with Tom Holland. I'm including Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire films as well. This film is so deep in Peter Parker's emotions, going into his psyche, if you will, and the burden of carrying the responsibilities of being Spider-Man, and the loneliness he feels, or feel that he has to be in order to be an effective Spider-Man, and shielding himself off from loved ones, friends, and connections outside of this superhero world, because the fear of losing someone, because he lost Aunt May in Spider-Man No Way Home, just in the previous film. And that was a result of him being Spider-Man. And it's hard for him to shake that grief and feel responsible for her passing. So it's a journey for him. And then you put on top of that, making everyone forget who he is, losing his best friend Ned, losing the love of his life in MJ, pretty much abandoning his dream of going to MIT with his friends. And all that was dashed away, in order to preserve this moniker of Spider-Man. And this is the aftermath of that decision. And what I respect about this movie far more than anything that I seen on the screen was the fact that, we never really think about happily ever after. We never think about when the credits roll after a movie. You know, once that story is told, we feel good. I mean, we all left the theater feeling good after No Way Home, despite the fact that at the end of that film, Doctor Strange performed the spell and everybody forgot who he was and all this other good stuff. But he was still Spider-Man. He was still off to save New York City. And it was a feel-good moment at the end. And it seemed like everything was right, that he made the right decision. Ultimately, he did, but there were consequences. No good deed goes unpunished. And this was that. Brand New Day was precisely that. Seeing the ramifications of that movie, of everything that took place. I think that was a bold choice to go in that direction. And it completely caught me off guard, to be honest with you. Even though, I mean, we all saw No Way Home and we all know what took place, but I wasn't really expecting for this movie to dive so deep into that burden. Brand New Day, in case you was wondering or didn't know, that there was a run. There was a comic book run storyline entitled Brand New Day. And if you think this is loosely based on that, you're sadly mistaken. That it is not based on that. Only thing that Spider-Man Brand New Day, the film, has with the comic storyline is the name. That's it. That's the only similarities that you find in the comic book. I believe him and MJ got married in that storyline. Aunt May is still alive. It was something else going on too. I can't remember. I think the superhero act, the Accord, something like the I'm blanking on the name, but the Sokovia Accords took place, and it was called something else in the comics. But yeah, all that was going on in that comic run. And so this was a different story, and I'm all for it. As I mentioned in the lead up, the big bugaboo, the big hitting detail in the marketing leading up to this film was Sadie Sink's character. It was the mystery, even though it wasn't a mystery for those in the know, but it was shrouded in mystery. That was the big secret of this film. And as I stated in my non-spoiler review, even though I didn't reveal anything in the non-spoiler review, that reveal didn't have the impact in first viewing. It didn't have the impact because I already knew. I basically sat there waiting for the reveal. You know, I was waiting for them to say who she was, and it took an hour to get to it in the movie. That was in the first viewing. Second viewing, I felt it a little more. It kind of, because that burden was off of me. I wasn't looking for that. I wasn't anticipating the reveal. I was just enjoying the show. I was going along for the ride, which I should have went along with in the first showing. But nonetheless, Sadie Sink as Jean Grey is picture perfect casting. Perfect casting for this character. One, she's young enough to whereas you can build the X-Men around her, you know, for years to come. She's young enough for that, at the perfect age. I think Sadie Sink is what, in maybe 20, huh? Maybe deep in the 20s. I don't know. How she might be mid-20s. I'm still thinking Stranger Things time. Like she's a teenager. But I think she's like 24, 25, something like that. But anywho's, perfect age and perfect actress. And her performance in this film was spot on to me. I enjoyed her as Jean Grey because even though she was doing some messed up stuff in the movie, and I say messed up like inhabiting other people's bodies and stuff, she wasn't hurting anybody, or she wasn't really trying to hurt anybody. You know, she still kept, or they managed to keep her character safe, you know, in regards of she's a hero. She is a X-Men at the end of the day, or will become one in the MCU. And Sadie Sink held it down. She held it down, man. I mean, for her to embrace that power at the end, and I mean, this is her without the Phoenix Force, people. This is her not even at her peak. And she basically froze New York City, or at least half of New York City, like it was nothing. When she finally broke free, when they finally pushed that button at the Department of Damage Control, it was phenomenal. That scene at the end when when it was revealed that her sister had died. Speaking of her sister, I don't know, because I was asked this after we left out the theater, if she had a sister in the comics. I'm not 100% certain. I don't think so. I think that was created for the movie, but I could be wrong. But I don't think. Maybe. I don't know if she played a big part in the comics or not, but I don't remember. I don't recall. I'll just say that. Anyways, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it didn't matter, but I did like that element of it. Another big standout was John Bernthal. John Bernthal as the Punisher. He was born for that role. He was born to be Frank Castle. He is Frank Castle. When I, oddly enough, this past week, the Punisher came on TV, and I'm not John Bernthal's, not Ray Stevenson, God rest his soul, not Warzone, but the Thomas Jane one, the very first one. Well, not the very first one, because Dolph Lundgren played the Punisher in the 80s, but don't worry about that. Disregard that. The one with Thomas Jane that came out, I would say about 20 years ago or so, and it wasn't all that good, but I did like Thomas Jane as the Punisher. Anyway, I'm going on this tangent, but I was watching that film. Thomas Jane did a really good job as the Punisher. This is the point I'm trying to get at. I actually liked him as the Punisher, but the movie was trash, and I didn't like how his character was in the movie. It wasn't Punisher. It was just a guy looking for vengeance or justice. Ray Stevenson was the closest one to get to it, but yet again, the movie was trash. And so when we get to the Netflix series with John Bernthal, and he just embodied the role, being this soldier with PTSD and his family being murdered and stuff like that, and he dove headfirst into the role. I thought he couldn't get any better. One Last Kill that came out on Disney Plus, last month? I thought that was really good. I thought his portrayal looked like he took it to another level on that. No, he took it to another level here. And he wasn't going around killing people as much. Or he was trying to kill a lot of people. Spider-Man was getting in his way, literally. And he didn't have to in order for you to feel that he was the Punisher. And that was my concern. I was a little concerned when they said that he was going to be in Spider-Man Brand New Day. I was like, well, how is that going to work? How are we going to put this hard R character in a PG-13 world and expect this to work? He must not going to be in it long. Well, he's in it a lot. I would say he's like the co-star almost, This isn't a cameo. He was in it a while. Half the movie, maybe. I mean, he was there. Him alongside of Tom Holland, which great chemistry between those two. They're real life friends. Off screen, they are real life friends, and you could tell when they on screen together, their chemistry is perfect. But he fit into this world, and they found a way to keep him true to his character, yet in this PG-13 world. I thought that was great. Great job by Daniel Cretton directing this film, and the writers for writing the film as well. But more importantly, John Bernthal for taking everything and displaying it through his performance. I enjoyed him more, almost more than anything in this movie. I really don't have a problem with any performance in this film, with the exception of one, and it's not the performance, it's not the actress, it's not even the character. I just felt they didn't fit in this movie. Well, not fit in the movie, but really served no purpose, and that was Florence Pugh. Florence Pugh as Black Widow. She was just there to be there. It was like she was there to connect Spider-Man to the rest of the MCU, which is mind-boggling to me because everything going around in this movie is a connection to the MCU. So you didn't need to kind of shoehorn in Florence Pugh just to say that, hey, the new Avengers are around. Okay, that's fine. But why? Why was she, the way they used her? It was a way you could have used her where it would have been more effective, and not take away from Spider-Man's shine, not take away from anybody else's shine. I get that you want to throw in these characters to kind of make the world bigger, but you really didn't need her here. You didn't need her character here. And the way they used her was more for comedic purposes and this here. That's the part I didn't really appreciate. It was a useless cameo. That was really a cameo. Not the John Bernthal, not even Mark Ruffalo. But it was the Florence Pugh being in it for, 2 scenes? In one, she's in a tub. And the other one, she's sitting next to the tub. It was silly. Now, if she was in the New Avengers Tower or something like that, and you see Sentry in the background or Red Guardian walking around or something like that, okay, now it feels like we're in this world. It didn't feel like it with her character being there. But that's me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong. But like I said, I've seen the movie twice, and I felt the same way the second time I watched it. I felt it more the second time I watched it. Like, this was useless. It really didn't need to have her in there. But like I said, that maybe is just me. In my non-spoiler review, I stated that my biggest bugaboo was the fact that the movie was long. And I don't mind long movies, but it just took a long time to get to the meat of the issue. Well, I don't know. I must have been drunk or loaded or something when I watched it the first time, because it didn't bother me this time. Nothing bothered me. I think the pacing was perfect. I thought it was perfect pacing. I thought that everything that was going on in the beginning of the film fit the movie and needed to work the way it did. Bouncing back and forth with Peter's struggles and Spider-Man's struggles. That was basically the start of this first act. It was well directed. I apologize for that. I apologize for putting that out there in the universe. That first part of this movie was draggy. It wasn't. It truly wasn't. It was really, really well thought out, well put together, and well paced. And my apologies for giving false reporting on that one, but that was really, really good. And once the story really ramped up, the movie didn't really ramp up. That's more of a cliche, that you say during reviews and giving descriptions of films. No, it ramps up from the word go. Whether it's the action or the emotion, it's always present throughout the film. And one thing that I noted in the non-spoiler review that I'm going to touch in here is the presence of New York City. Now, I could tell that it's not actual New York City, but it felt like New York City. You could tell that they shot this somewhere else on a stage or whatever, but it felt so claustrophobic, I think. Because I can't think of any other adjective to put through on that, because it just felt lived in. He felt caged into this city. And that's the first time I felt that way in any Spider-Man movie, no matter if it was street level or global. It this version of Spider-Man is the most street level grounded Spider-Man movie ever. And at his core, that's who Spider-Man is. He is a street level hero. Not fighting Thanos, not fighting aliens and all that good stuff, which he does in the comics. But I mean, the main stories of Spider-Man that we followed, if you're a follower of the comics, is him with these street level villains like Tombstone that pops up in this film, like a Boomerang that pops up in this film, Tarantula that's in this film, and it's quick, and all that's in the trailer. That's not even spoilers. Everything that you see of these characters are in the trailer. That was more of a montage series that happened in the film. I thought that was funny and interesting too. You know, we didn't have to see long dragged out fights with him and Tombstone or him with Tarantula and all this other good stuff. We didn't need to see all that. You know, it would have been nice. Don't get me wrong. I would have enjoyed it, but the way they did it, the way they used it, perfect. We know that their presence is there. We know that there are villains. Those villains are present in the MCU, in this New York City where Spider-Man is protecting. And so I give him a thumbs up with that. Now, the little mutation that Spider-Man is going through in this film, this was weird. Now, I'm still feeling a little weird about it, and watching it again, I'm still a little thrown off by it, but I get what they were trying to do. I get the messaging here. I get the story that they're telling here with his mutation, with this little spider puberty that he's going through. You know, it all makes sense theoretically. I just, well, let me say this. This is a personal thing. This is not a comics canon real revelation type deal that's gonna impact the MCU as a total. That's not the thing. This is a personal thing for me, and so take it with a grain of salt. But I'm gonna mention it because maybe somebody feels the exact same way. The web thing, the webs coming out of his wrist. I am not a fan of that. Now, as much as I love Tobey Maguire and love those 3 films he was, well, 2.5 films that he was in, I cannot express my dismay for the organic web shooters. I hated that. And the reason I hate it is because reading the comics growing up, my biggest joy was always watching Spider-Man swinging and he runs out of web fluid. He runs out of cartridges. And it was fun to see him try to figure it out or panic when he's mid swing and he runs out, you know, because he doesn't have any more cartridges. It was just a fun element to the character that I enjoyed growing up reading in the comic books. That's me. And so when you give them organic webs, that's not even an issue. They tried to pull that bull crap in Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire, where he was going through this not 3, part 2, when he was going through this existential crisis type deal where, you know, his webs wouldn't come out and all this other foolishness. I didn't buy that then. So it didn't have this because it didn't have the same impact. It didn't have that same feel. And now you done took this away from Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Now he has the organic webs. And I'm sitting there like, why? Why? The webs weren't doing you nothing. Why are we doing this? Why? Now, is that going to cause me to hate the character now? No. I just wish they wouldn't have did it. That's all I'm saying. I went through this whole thing just to say, I wish they wouldn't have did it. That's all. But that's fine. Tom Holland balances it out. And that's the one thing I want to kind of lead in and kind of end this review on is Tom Holland. Well, no, I'm lying. That's not going to end the review because I have a lot more to say as well. Tom Holland gave his best performance as Peter Parker, Spider-Man. I think Tom Holland, and I said this in a non-spoiler, so this isn't a new revelation here. I think he's the best Spider-Man. Is he my favorite Spider-Man, live-action Spider-Man? I'm still debating on that. It depends on what day you ask me, because I love all three. I love Tobey Maguire. I loved Andrew Garfield. I wish he would have got a righteous chance to really display it, because I think, honestly, I think Andrew Garfield was the perfect Peter Parker. He just was in the wrong movies, but he didn't get the chance. He didn't get the chance to really stretch his wings. That's my opinion. But Tom Holland has been great. He has been great as Peter Parker, at least as the high school kid Peter Parker. And we fast forward now to Brand New Day, and this is an adult Peter Parker. We have grown up. There's no more high school. There's no more Aunt May. There's nothing kiddie about what's going on with him. His adult situations that he's going through. Everything is an adult theme. And Tom Holland grew up. Now Tom Holland ain't a kid no more. I mean, he's married now in real life to Zendaya. And so he is a grown man. And he brought the grown man energy into Peter Parker. And man, I'm telling you, you want to talk about a phenomenal acting job as Peter Parker. This is him with a mask on. You know, even when he took the mask off, it was worse because you can see his expressions now. You can see the water welling up in his eyes. You can see the teardrop. You can see his mouth twerk when he hears something bad. You know, the gob of spit in his throat that he has to swallow back down when something is gut wrenching. That scene with him and Zendaya on Frank Castle's boat, when she reveals to him that I don't remember, after he finally tells her he loves her, and you see the enlightenment on his face when he tells. That's why I'm like, man, this is so perfect. I'm not going to tell you a word of lie, people. I cried. I'm going to tell you now, I cried in that, not boo-hooing crying, but tears ran down my face. It was, it was that deep. He finally told her that he loved her. And for Zendaya as MJ to tell him that, look, the spell worked. Whatever you did worked, because I don't remember you and I don't love you. And the way she performed it, this is Zendaya, once again, gave her best performance, her best as MJ. Because she didn't tell him in a malicious, evil way, like, I don't know you, you know, she didn't go there. It was so caring the way she broke it down to him, because she knew he was telling the truth. She believed every word that came out of his mouth, and she felt it, but not in that way. And the way that she just performed this scene was it was a caring way that she really tore his heart out. You know, she did it so soft. You know, she didn't just rip it out. She had her gloves on. She just went in his chest like, oh, I'm sorry, wait, okay, I got it now, and then just gently pulled it out of his chest. She didn't just rip it out. And did it make a difference? No, because Tom Holland, when she dropped that bomb and you just saw his face, and he was you could see he's trying to hold it together, you know, not really show nothing, but he can't help it because this woman, he loves MJ. And so many things, I can just see it rolling through it. My spidey senses were tingling because I can see what was going on in his head. You know, this is my fault. I see why she don't. All that stuff. I mean, d- just just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. That's why I cried, because you're not mad. Normally, when you see that on a film or experience it in real life, present company included, when you experience that, it is far different, you know, and it's played in a way where the one breaking that news is saying it in a malicious way, meant to hurt you, or it just nothing good, just evil, just an evil way. This wasn't an evil way. It was a sweet way, to say no. you know oh man, it was heartbreaking. It was so heartbreaking. That scene tore me up, honest to God. Another scene that tore me up was Sadie Sink, when she was captured by damage control and she's in that room, and after hunting this VMAX the entire film, trying to get down to the bottom of it, trying to find her sister, after going through these experiments, and she looks up and she sees that label on the vent, and it's halfway peeled off, and it's saying VMAX, and the revelation that, oh, her sister was here. Oh, that was the last thing her sister saw. That's why she felt it. And Sadie Sink, bro. Sadie Sink at that moment, as Jean Grey, realizing that, and just coming to grips with the fact that you killed my sister, and she unleashed the beast. At this moment, is a blessing from God above that the Phoenix Force wasn't with her then, because everybody would have been dead. Everybody would have been just wiped off of planet Earth. And so it was a blessing from God. But she unleashed her power and just took control of everything. And it was, man, I was scared. That was the first time in live action that I was scared of Jean Grey. And we've seen, what, 2 different versions of Jean Grey in multiple films. This was the first time I was scared of Jean Grey. That's why I feel that Sadie Sink was perfectly cast as this role, or in this role as Jean Grey, because if they're going to build the MCU X-Men saga around her, that tells me that we are heading towards the Dark Phoenix saga. Now, I know what everybody said, because I just heard it through my microphone. The collective, oh God, again. I know we done got 2 versions of the Dark Phoenix and in live action, and both of them sucked. I know, I get it. But no disrespect to Fonka Jensen, no disrespect to Sophie Turner. Those 2 actresses, they wasn't ready for prime time. They weren't ready for that. And sadly, 20th Century Fox didn't know how to do it. And the filmmakers didn't know how to do it properly. I have an inkling of faith into Kevin Feige and Marvel and everybody that's over there that's putting this together, that they're going to do it justice. So you need somebody who is capable of portraying that. Just look back at Sadie Sink in Stranger Things. That's the most popular thing that she had been in up to this point. And look at her performance throughout that series. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. That's why it wasn't a surprise that that's who they cast her as, to me. But it makes sense because she can hold that down. She can really hold it down. And I'm excited to see moving forward what we're going to do. And it was great to see her on that bus at the end of the movie. Looks like heading upstate New York, and we know what is upstate New York. The school for gifted children. And so we will see moving forward how we will experience Jean Grey in this bigger universe as a whole. The only thing I have left to say, and this may bother some people, I must be honest that initially it kind of took me back. I was kind of taken aback by it. There's no real villain in this movie. There's no villain other than, I guess you could say, damage control. But even them, they were more the antagonists. They weren't the villain. And there was no villain. There was nobody that Spider-Man had to go fisticuffs with at the end to save the world. Yeah, he fought the Hand, and the hand was great. That was so comic booky. It felt like a comic book come to life when Spider-Man took on the Hand, because the Hand was moving just like the Hand moved in the comic books. Great. That was great. But yeah, that's probably one quote unquote knock I have on it. But that's not the story they were telling. Honestly, that's not the story that they were trying to display there on the big screen. It's not hero versus villain. This was more of an internal thing. It was more of a mental gymnastics that you're going throughout this film. And I think that this was probably the best Spider-Man film ever made. And honestly, sitting there at the end, I'm putting it up there, top 10 comic book movies ever made. Straight up. I can't find too many flaws with this movie. Even though I found a couple in my first viewing, those were quickly dashed away in my second. This was perfect. This was a perfect Spider-Man movie. Loved it. Loved every minute of it. I'm going to see it again for a third time. And before we get out of here, since it's the spoiler review, let's talk about that post-credit scene. In my theater, in both viewings, the early screening that took place, and this previous one, both times the audience were pissed off because they didn't know what was going on. Me, on the other hand, and I found it kind of odd because the first time I was sitting next to a fellow geek, and I would have assumed he would have figured it out. Now, that's not to say that what I think it is scripture, but just the only logical thing that could pop up in my mind. When the Spidey tracker went off, and it indicated that Spider-Man was on a different world, or maybe a different dimension, or a different galaxy or whatever. My immediate thought was Battle World. We are heading towards Secret Wars, Avengers, right? We're getting Doomsday in December. We're getting Secret Wars next year. In case you don't know what Secret Wars is, this is after the incursions. This is after all of the universes collide into one another, and Dr. Doom has set up this battle world. And the whole purpose of Battle World is for the heroes from these different universes or dimensions to battle it out. And the winner of this battle or these battles their universe will reign supreme. That will be the official universe. And so that was the whole purpose of Battle World. So I'm assuming that's what Secret Wars is going to be all about. Of course, well, not much of an assumption because you see in Doomsday, if you look in the trailers, how the X-Men, the Fox X-Men are fighting, you know, the new Avengers and all this other stuff, Gambit and Shang-Chi and all this other stuff. You like, okay, this is a precursor to Battle World. That's what I think the post-credit scene is setting up. Now, I don't know why they did it so early, but I think the initial plan, the initial layout was for Doomsday to come out and then Spider-Man Brand New Day and then Secret Wars. I believe that's how it was scheduled to come out. But things got pushed back and this, that, and the third. That's how Spider-Man Brand New Day was released before Doomsday. And so I think that's what probably threw it off. So with knowing that knowledge, that's probably where we're going to see Spider-Man again in Secret Wars. Don't look for him in Doomsday. He don't need to be in Doomsday. Honestly, I don't want him in Doomsday. It's too early. I just seen him. Let me soak on this for another year or so. I'll be super happy with that. But this was an awesome film. I felt that this film literally brought the comics to life. It felt like a comic book. It felt like a Spider-Man comic book come to life. I got the same feeling as 12, 13-year-old Kevin sitting down reading these comics, and especially Spider-Man, who is my second favorite comic book character of all time. In case you don't know, number one is Batman. But Spider-Man is a close, and I mean close second. It really brought back memories. It was a nostalgia trip for me, just in the sense of it just felt so lived in as far as a comic book is concerned. You know, we got large portions of this movie where he's solely in the mask. Even when he met up with Yelena in that bathhouse and had to get in the bathtub with her, he still had on the mask. You know, it's so true to the comics. That character, you know, the whips and the flailing around and his fighting style and everything associated with Spider-Man was present in this movie, and the emotion and the grown-up nature of it. Like, this is not Homecoming, this is not Far From Home or No Way Home. We have grown past that, and this is super adult, and I appreciate every single second of it. Spider-Man Brand New Day gets a letter grade of an A. Yeah, it improved, people. It improved. I gave it a B minus or was it a B plus? I gave it a B plus in the non-spoiler review. Nah, it's an A. It's an A. Awesome movie. But that's just one man's opinion. I would love to know, what did you think of Spider-Man Brand New Day? Did you enjoy it? Do you think it's one of the best? Do you think it's one of the worst? Or do you think it's I'd love to know your thoughts. Subscribe to the KBRadioNetwork.com website, where you can be notified on all episodes dropping and previous episodes that are currently available. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video while you're there. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this spoiler review of Spider-Man Brand New Day. Want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.